That morning, I stood in the narrow hallway of my apartment, staring at the door like it might judge me if I left too slowly. The place still smelled new, cheap paint, old wood, and loneliness. It wasn't home. It was a temporary pause in my life, a space I never imagined I'd end up in. 3 months earlier, I had lived in a house with sunlight in every room, a garden I never watered, and a husband who once promised forever. Now, all of that belonged to him. Divorce doesn't just take your marriage, it takes your identity. When Daniel walked out, he didn't just take the house, the savings, and the car. He took the version of me that believed in safety. All I had left was this small apartment, a bus pass, and mornings that felt heavier than nights. I locked the door behind me and stood for a second, listening to the echo. Then I exhaled and walked toward the bus stop. The city was already awake. People hurried past me, wrapped in their own lives, their own problems. Everyone looked like they knew where they were going. I didn't. I was just moving because standing still hurt more. At the bus stop, I checked the time for the third time in a minute. Late again. The bus was always late when I needed it the most. I leaned against the metal pole and closed my eyes, feeling the cold through my coat. That was when I noticed how quiet my mind had become. No crying, no anger, just emptiness. The bus finally pulled up with a loud sigh, like it was just as tired as I was. I stepped inside, swiped my card, and walked toward the middle, choosing the window seat. I liked sitting there because I could pretend I was watching life instead of being part of it. The glass was dirty, streaked with fingerprints and dust. My reflection stared back at me, thinner, paler, older. I looked like someone who had lost a war and was still pretending she hadn't. The bus started moving. Buildings passed. Cars honked. People got on and off. Time blurred the way it does when your heart is numb. 2 stops later, the doors opened again. An old man stepped inside. I noticed him immediately, not because he was loud, but because he looked like he didn't belong. He wore a long, worn coat that had been mended too many times, and he carried a brown leather briefcase clutched tightly in both hands. His hair was thin and white, and his hands shook as he tried to hold onto the rail. The bus lurched forward. He stumbled. I felt my body move before my brain did. "Here," I said, standing up. "Please take my seat." He looked up at me, surprised. His eyes were sharp, too sharp for someone who looked so fragile. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, my child." There was something in his voice, not just gratitude, but relief, like someone who hadn't been helped in a very long time. He sat down slowly, carefully, and placed the briefcase on his lap like it was something precious. I moved to stand near the door, holding the metal pole as the bus continued forward. That was when the atmosphere changed. It's hard to explain, but it felt like the bus was no longer just a bus. The air felt heavier. The noise faded. Even the movement of the city outside the window seemed slower. I kept glancing at him. The old man sat perfectly still, his hands resting on the briefcase, his eyes fixed on the floor. But something about him made my chest tighten, like I had seen him before in a dream or in a life that wasn't mine. I shook the thought away. Grief does strange things to your mind. Then the bus stopped again, and everything changed. My sister Lena stepped inside. Lena was always confident, sharp clothes, sharp words, sharp decisions. She never hesitated, never doubted. She had supported Daniel during the divorce more than she supported me, and that alone had created a silence between us that neither of us talked about. I watched her step onto the bus, already bracing myself for the awkward nod we usually exchanged. But she never looked at me. Her eyes were locked on the old man. She froze. Not just paused, froze. The color drained from her face, so fast it scared me. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. For a second, she looked like she had seen a ghost. Then she turned to me, and in her eyes I saw fear. Real fear. She rushed over, grabbed my arm so hard it hurt, and leaned close enough that her breath hit my cheek. "Sophia," she whispered, "you have no idea who you just helped." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What are you talking about?" I whispered back, but she shook her head, her grip tightening. "We need to get off this bus," she said.
Now.
I looked at the old man again. He hadn't moved, but his posture had changed. His shoulders were straighter, his head slightly lifted, and though his eyes were still down, I knew, deep in my bones, that he was listening. Suddenly, the briefcase on his lap didn't look old anymore. It looked important, dangerous. My stomach twisted. "Lena," I said slowly. "Who is he?" She swallowed, her eyes darting toward him and back to me. "He's the man your husband stole from." The words hit me like a slap. "What?" Before she could answer, the bus hit a bump. The old man lifted his head, and our eyes met. For a moment, the world stopped. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something passed between us. Recognition, understanding, a silent promise. He spoke quietly, without turning away. "You were kind to me," he said. "Most people aren't anymore." My mouth went dry. Lena stepped back like she'd been burned. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. That seat I had given up wasn't just a seat. It was a choice. And whatever this man was about to bring into my life, it was already too late to undo it. Lena didn't speak again until the bus reached the next stop. Her fingers were still wrapped around my arm, tight enough to leave marks. She was shaking, and that scared me more than anything else. My sister never shook. She was the calm one, the controlled one, the one who always knew more than she said. The doors opened with a hiss. "Get off," she whispered.
Now.
I looked at the old man one last time. He was watching us, not with anger, not with fear, but with patience. The kind of patience that only comes from someone who has been waiting a very long time. "I can't," I said. "You're not making sense." Lena swallowed hard. "Sophia, please." I hesitated, and in that hesitation, the doors closed. The bus moved again. Lena cursed under her breath and finally let go of my arm. She stared at the floor like she was trying to decide how much truth I could survive. "That man," she said, her voice barely a breath. "His name is Mr. Adler." The name meant nothing to me, but the way Lena said it, it sounded like a warning. "Years ago," she continued, "before Daniel married you, before he even had a company, Mr. Adler was his partner, his mentor, the man who gave him everything." My chest tightened. "That's impossible. Daniel built his business from nothing." Lena let out a bitter laugh. "That's the story he tells." I looked at the old man again. He sat quietly, hands still on the briefcase, eyes forward, like he already knew everything being said. "What did Daniel do?" I whispered. Lena closed her eyes. "He betrayed him, stole the patents, emptied the accounts, took the clients, and left him with nothing but debt." The bus rumbled beneath us, but I felt like I was falling. "That can't be true," I said. "He would have told me." Lena looked at me then, really looked at me, and her eyes were filled with pity. "No," she said softly. "He never tells you anything that matters." My throat burned. The old man shifted slightly in his seat. "I never wanted revenge," he said suddenly, his voice calm, steady. "I only wanted the truth to catch up." Every hair on my body stood up. Lena flinched. I turned fully toward him now, my heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. "Why are you here?" I asked. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it. The weight of years, the cost of betrayal, the quiet strength of someone who survived losing everything. "Because your husband thought he took it all," Mr. Adler said. But he didn't. The bus slowed as it approached the next stop. Mr. Adler lifted his briefcase slightly. "And what he left behind is now yours." The bus came to a slow, shaking stop, but none of us moved. The doors opened, people stepped off, new passengers stepped on, yet it felt like time had sealed us inside a bubble that only the three of us could feel. The world outside continued, unaware that something irreversible had just begun. Mr. Adler adjusted the briefcase on his lap. "You should have let me fall," he said quietly, without looking at me. I blinked. "What?" "Most people do," he replied. "They look away. They pretend not to see. Kindness is rare when you've lost everything." His words stung in a way I didn't expect. I hadn't helped him because I was brave or good. I had helped him because I knew what it felt like to be invisible. Lena leaned closer to me. Sophia, we need to leave.
Now.
But before I could respond, Mr. Adler stood up. The bus swayed, and I instinctively reached out to steady him. His grip was firm, much stronger than I expected from a man who looked so fragile.
Come with me, he said.
Where? I asked, my voice barely steady. To the truth, he replied. He stepped off the bus. I stood there, frozen, my mind screaming that this was a mistake, that nothing good ever comes from following strangers, but my heart was already moving. I followed him. Lena cursed softly and jumped off behind me. The bus pulled away, leaving us standing on the sidewalk like we had just been dropped into a different life. Mr. Adler turned to face me. Daniel divorced you for a reason, he said. Not because he stopped loving you, but because you were the last thing connecting him to me. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He hid something in your name, Mr. Adler said. Something he never expected you to understand. Something he thought you'd never question. Lena sucked in a breath. The offshore accounts. Mr. Adler nodded. And the patents. And the original license. All of it. My ears rang. You're lying, I whispered. He took everything. Mr. Adler smiled sadly.
No, Sophia.
He left you everything that matters. He opened the briefcase. Inside were documents, thick folders stamped, signed, official. I recognized Daniel's handwriting immediately. Notes, signatures, dates, and my name on everything. My hands started shaking as I flipped through the pages. This I swallowed hard. This is worth millions. Mr. Adler looked at me with calm certainty. Billions, he corrected. The street noise faded. My breath came shallow. Lena stared at the papers, stunned. Sophia, do you know what this means? I nodded slowly. It meant Daniel hadn't just divorced me. He had run from me. And for the first time since my life collapsed, I felt something new rising in my chest. Not sadness, not fear.
Power.
I didn't call Daniel. Not that day. Not the next. I let the truth sit inside me like a secret weapon, heavy and sharp. Every page from that briefcase replayed in my mind. Every signature, every date, every hidden account that carried my name like a silent bomb waiting to explode. Mr. Adler insisted we sit in a small cafe across the street. The kind of place that smelled like burnt coffee and old memories. Your husband is watching you, he said calmly, stirring his cup. He always has. My hands tightened around the mug. Then why would he leave this with me? Because he underestimated you, Mr. Adler replied. And because he was desperate. Lena leaned forward. Desperate for what? For time, Mr. Adler said. He knew the merger was coming. He knew the audit would expose everything. And he needed someone clean to hold the license. The word hit me like thunder. The operating license, I whispered. Mr. Adler nodded slowly. The only one that matters. Without it, his entire empire collapses. I swallowed. I finally understood why Daniel had smiled when he signed the divorce papers. Why he hadn't fought me for anything. Why he walked away so easily. He thought he had used me. My phone vibrated on the table. Once. Then again. Daniel. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. Lena grabbed my wrist. Don't answer. But Mr. Adler shook his head. Answer. Let him hear your voice. I lifted the phone to my ear. Hello. Silence. Then his voice, tight, controlled, scared. Sophia, we need to talk. I smiled for the first time in months. I know, I said softly. So do I. And just like that, the power shifted. Daniel chose the place. A glass tower downtown. All steel and money and fake smiles. The kind of building where people pretend they're untouchable. It was his world. And he thought bringing me there would make me small again. I arrived early. Not because I was nervous, but because I wanted to watch him walk in. Lena waited outside. Mr. Adler was already gone, moving like a ghost, leaving me with only the truth and a briefcase full of weapons disguised as paper. The elevator doors opened. Daniel stepped out. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect mask, but his eyes betrayed him. They flicked to the briefcase in my hand for half a second, just long enough for me to know he recognized it. "Sophia," he said, forcing a smile. "You look well." I nodded. "You look afraid." He laughed too fast. "You always did imagine things." We sat. Glass table, glass walls, glass lies. "I want what's mine," he said quietly. I leaned back. "You already took everything." He clenched his jaw. "You don't understand what you're holding." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "You hid the license in my name. You used me as a shield." Silence.
His face changed.
Not anger, not shock.
Panic.
"You wouldn't dare," he whispered. I slid one document across the table. "I already did." His hands shook as he read. And in that moment I knew the man who once owned me was now begging me to breathe. Daniel tried to bargain. He always did when he was losing. "You don't know how this works," he said, lowering his voice like we were still married, like I still belonged to him. "If you pull that license, everything collapses. Hundreds of people lose jobs. Investors will destroy you." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw how small he was. "You should have thought about that before you used my name," I said. His smile vanished. "You think Mr. Adler is your ally?" he hissed. "He'll destroy you the moment you're done." I leaned forward. "That's the difference between you and me. I don't betray people who tell me the truth." He stood up suddenly, chair scraping loudly. Heads turned. He forced himself to sit again, breathing hard. "You can't win," he said. "I built this." "No," I replied calmly. "You stole this." I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. His voice filled the room, a recording from 2 years ago, laughing, confessing how he'd ruined Mr. Adler, how no one would ever trace it back to him. Daniel's face went white. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. "From the man you tried to erase," I said. He stood up again. This time I didn't stop him, because the trap was already closing. Daniel didn't run. He smiled. That was the most terrifying part. By the next morning, his company's name was everywhere. Not in headlines yet, but in whispers. Phones rang. Meetings were canceled. Lawyers started calling lawyers. The kind of silence that only appears before a storm settled over the city. I watched it all from my small apartment, coffee growing cold in my hands, news playing quietly in the background. Sources confirm the merger has been delayed indefinitely. I closed my eyes and let the words sink in. Delayed meant exposed. Exposed meant investigated. Investigated meant finished. My phone vibrated again. Unknown number. I answered. "Sophia," Daniel said, his voice cracked for the first time. "We can fix this." I almost laughed. "You already fixed it," I replied. "For me." There was a long pause. Then he whispered, "What do you want?" I looked at the city outside my window. The same city I once felt trapped in. "I want my life back," I said. "And this time you're not in it." I hung up. An hour later, Mr. Adler called. "It's begun," he said. "Auditors are inside. The license has been frozen." I leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. For the first time in months, my hands weren't shaking. The news broke at noon. Daniel's company offices were raided. Computers seized. Accounts frozen. The merger officially canceled. The empire he built on lies collapsed in a single morning. I watched the live footage in silence. Men in suits walked in and out of the building carrying boxes. Reporters shouted questions no one answered. The logo Daniel once loved so much was blurred behind yellow tape. Lena sat beside me, her hand over mine. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded, not because I felt nothing, but because I felt everything at once. Relief, sadness, anger, freedom. My phone buzzed. One message.
"Daniel, you ruined me."
I typed back slowly, carefully.
"No."
"You did that yourself." I deleted his number. That evening, Mr. Adler came by. He looked lighter, younger, like revenge had finally released something heavy inside him. "It's yours now," he said, handing me a folder. The company, the license, the future. I opened it and saw my name, no longer hidden, no longer used. For the first time, it belonged to me.
Power's strange.
When you finally hold it, you realize how much it costs to get there, and how easily it can turn you into the thing you hated. I sat alone in my apartment, the folder open on the table, my name printed across every page. I could rebuild the empire. I could crush Daniel completely. I could make sure he never stood up again. And yet, my hands didn't move. I thought of the old man on the bus, of kindness, of the seat that started everything. Mr. Adler called later that night. "Are you ready to announce?" he asked. I looked at the city lights flickering like a million tiny lives. "No," I said softly. "I'm ready to end it." Silence. "You're walking away?" he asked. "I'm choosing something better," I replied. The next morning, I signed everything over. Not to myself, not to Mr. Adler, but to a foundation that would rebuild what Daniel destroyed without repeating his sins. When I walked out of the office, the air felt lighter. I was free. A year later, I rode the same bus, same route,
Same seats.
different me. The city looked softer now, kinder, or maybe I was. I carried no briefcase this time, no secrets, no fear, just a book in my bag and peace in my chest. At the same stop, an old woman stepped on, struggling to stand. I smiled and stood up. "Please," I said, offering my seat. She looked at me the way Mr. Adler once had, surprised, grateful, seen. As I stood holding the pole, I caught my reflection in the window. I wasn't the woman who lost everything. I was the woman who found herself. Sometimes life doesn't change when you fight. Sometimes it changes when you stand up and give your seat to a stranger.